Hi, I'm Dawn and I'm an artist. And I like to make things out of materials that I have lying around the house, often things that other people might discard or not find any value in. And I like to take, things that people might consider to be garbage and give them a new purpose and make them into something interesting and creative. And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently a lot is cardboard. We've been accumulating quite a bit of cardboard in our house. We've been having our produce delivered, and it comes in cardboard boxes every week, and we have quite a few of those at home. So it made me start thinking about a project that I worked on several years ago where I made a series of cardboard boxes out of cardboard boxes. I wove them, and I thought that if other people have materials like cardboard around, they might be interested in doing some weaving with them. So this video will be the first in a series of videos. In this one, I'm going to talk about preparing the cardboard for weaving, and then I'll do another one on the weaving process itself, and then a third one on finishing your cardboard, some different options for making lids. Here's a different version with a lid, and some other creative things that you can do with cardboard, cutting to strips. So if you're interested in weaving with cardboard, you'll need a few things. You'll obviously need some cardboard to start. So I use corrugated cardboard. That's 2 pieces of paper that are laminated together with the ridges in between. Sometimes you might find really thick corrugated cardboard that's like 2 layers laminated together. That's too thick. You just want the basic run-of-the-mill 1-layer cardboard. You'll also need some cutting tools. So I've been using anything from these sort of cheap snap away tools to an X-Acto blade or something like that. I would not recommend using scissors because it can be really hard on your hands cutting a lot of cardboard with scissors. You'll also need something on your surface to protect it from getting gashes as you cut the cardboard. I think it's important to point that out. Sometimes I get carried away and will only realize after the fact that I'm cutting into my table and making a big mess. Surface protector or straight edge, something to cut your strips with. So I use a metal meter stick. It's a nice length. It'll let you can cut a whole meter without having to move your ruler along. If you just have a shorter ruler, that would be fine as well. Another thing that can be useful is a quilting ruler, which lets you see through the surface to gauge how wide you're cutting things. So if your straight edge is a ruler, that's fine. If it isn't, excuse me, you would need another measuring tool, so tape measure or something like that. If you wanted to paint your cardboard before you wove it or before you weave it, excuse me, you can paint your cardboard as well if you don't want to leave it the natural cardboard color. In that case, you need paint and a paintbrush. And for this particular box, I used acrylic paint, and on the inside of the box, I left some of the uncut cardboard so you can see what the pattern was. And it doesn't really matter because once you cut your cardboard into strips, it loses the design, so it becomes fairly random. You can also, if you don't want to paint your cardboard, you can use something that's already a different color. And this was some sort of a power tool box that I cut up into strips, and the words almost become a pattern. They lose meaning. So you can use something like that. I've also in the past used tempera paint. The colors are far less intense, and you would need to seal tempera paint or anything that's not permanent. You'd need to seal it so that it doesn't rub off over time. So once you've got your materials gathered for this first process, we can start. I'll start showing you how to decide how much you would need, how much cardboard you'll need, and how to cut the strips. But if you want to, before we start the next video, there are some materials you need for weaving. You need cardboard strips, like we've talked about, quite a lot of them. You also need some wooden clothes pegs and some white glue and a pair of scissors. And so that's during the weaving part. So before you start the second video, you'd want to gather those supplies together as well. I'm personally, for this project, I'm not going to paint the cardboard. I'm just going to leave it as is because I don't actually have any cardboard boxes that look like cardboard. They've all been painted. So the cutting process. Oh, yes, let's talk about how much materials you will need. So let's have a look. There it is. Let's look at this box. So this box has, the strips are about, let's have a look. They're about 1.5 inches. So we're going to make narrower strips. And this is about the size of box we're going to make. So you will need strips of cardboard that will wrap around from one side around the bottom and up the other side. So in this case, because these strips are 1.5 inches, the size of the finished box size is, the box is 7 inches by 7 inches, and I've got 4 strips. But we're going to make a smaller box that has a square box like this one, but that has 5 1-inch strips. So my meter stick that I use is 1 inch wide, and it's a really nice, simple measurement for me to use. So what you want to do is whatever size you decide you want your box to be, your strips need to be slightly bigger than, they need to wrap around the sides of your box like this, but they should be sticking up on the side. You would want to have quite a bit of extra room. So these would not be long enough. I would want longer strips. But we're going to, that one might be short. Nope, those are the size. So for the project that we're doing, we're going to cut. So if I want to have 4 strips, I'll need 1, 2, 3, 4 for this side that wrap around. And then another 4 for the other side that wrap around. So that would be 8 strips. And then I will also need strips that wrap around the outside edge, that go all the way around. This doesn't go all the way around, but that's okay. So I would need 3 that wrap around all the way. So I need 8 for the sides, plus another 3 to go around the box. And you can make your box a different size. Maybe you'll want to make 5 strips across, and 5 strips across each side, and 4 strips high. It depends on what you want. But for this particular project, I'm going to recommend, and the reason that I picked this length is that the boxes that I have will make 20-inch wide strips pretty easily. So you're going to cut 12 to 15 strips of cardboard that are 20 inches long and 1 inch wide. Okay? Now, before you start cutting, I'm going to point out that cardboard has a direction. Cardboard has these ridges in it, and you can cut in 2 directions. You can cut your strips parallel to the ridges, or you can cut across the ridges. So I would recommend, although you won't see the ridges, that you cut them across the ridges so that your strip is nice and flexible, and this is what your pieces will look like. So this one I've cut the way I said, so across the ridges are running this way, and it's nice and flexible, and it will bend in nice straight lines. This other piece, the ridges run this way, but when I try to bend it, it's a little bit harder to bend, and it doesn't give you the crisp, clean edges when you're weaving with it. It's a bit harder to work with. So remember cutting across your cardboard. So when I cut the strips, I lay my meter stick down on I line my meter stick up with the edge off my cardboard, and I use my cutting blade to just score the surface a few times. And your strips do not have to be perfect. If they're a little bit imperfect or jagged or a little bit wonky, that's perfectly okay. You probably don't want them to be very wonky. You want them to be reasonably straight. But a little bit imperfect is fine. Now, if you did not want to make your strips 1 inch wide, you could make them a different width, or if you were using a different tool, but then you're going to have to make some marks on your papers, on your cardboard. So if you wanted to make your strips 3/4 of an inch, you would mark 3/4 of an inch. Every 3/4 of an inch, you would make marks, and you'd make them a little bit further down as well. And then you would use your straight edge to align with those marks that you made and make your strips, cut your strips that way as well. So remember, make about, what did I say, 14 to 16 strips. And then once you've got your strips, you'll be ready for the next video, which is the weaving process. So you'll need your cardboard strips, some clothes pegs, and some white glue and a pair of scissors for the next video. Thanks.